In this video, we're going to be practicing gesture drawing. So this is a really great way to just kind of get familiarized with how we can use gesture drawings to start to kind of capture the essence of the human form. So in your packets, you guys have quite a few examples there. And what you're going to be doing is exactly what I'm doing on screen here. You're going to be tracing over the figure, and you're going to be basically marking the key points of the figure. So as you can see in my drawing, I am tracing over and I'm drawing things such as the line of the body. I'm drawing things like circles just to mark off where my joints are. I'm doing just quick gestures to, again, kind of show the movement and capture the shape of the limbs and the human body. So I'm tracing first just because it's a really good way just for beginners to start to get a feel of the human body. And then what I'd like you to do is in the blank space off to the side of that picture, I want you to go and free draw that same gesture. So again, you practiced by tracing first to get a feel, and then you're going to go ahead and draw it on your own. So now I'm just focusing on the line work itself, again, on those quick, smooth gestures and drawing out the lines. It kind of looks like a stick figure in a way, but a little more of a dynamic stick figure, right? We're seeing movement, we're seeing a pose here. So that's really our goal, is just to capture the overall shape and positioning of this human. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video in a bit, and this will be your chance to go ahead and try this out. So you'll be turning to the tracing practice page in your packets, and I want you to do the same thing where you're drawing these lines, drawing these quick movements over your page, not worrying about the details. All right, now that we have a feel for gesture drawing after practicing our tracing, we are going to take things up a level. So what I'm doing here is I just set a timer for 30 seconds, and I'm just trying to do a quick speed gesture drawing of the subject in the photo here. So the benefit of the timer is it kind of forces me just to quickly capture the subject as a whole instead of kind of getting stuck on those small details. So I'm just focusing more on large sweeping movements of the subject. Now you can see there I just did like a big, almost like a C shape. Something I like to keep in mind as I'm doing gesture drawing is that we can actually use certain shapes such as like a C or an S or an I to kind of represent different curves or different shapes. So kind of thinking about things such as a C curve or an S curve can just kind of help us to create more dynamic movement, and just to create pieces that are a little bit less stiff. I also tend to do like kind of a lot of scribbling back and forth when I'm working quickly, but you don't necessarily have to. I've seen so many different styles of gesture drawing, so you can really find what works best for you. Oftentimes, scribbly lines are a sign that your brain is still processing the image, which I definitely am. I'm kind of looking at the image on the spot and quickly trying to speed draw it. So I really didn't take too much time to process it. So this is me kind of processing the image as I draw it, trying to really see those different parts of the human form. Now, when I'm gesture drawing too, speaking of those parts, I'm really looking for things like the head, the spine, the pelvis, the arms, the legs, and the torso. So I do usually like to start with the head first, and then I'll kind of look at where everything's placed in relation to the head. But I know other artists start with the torso, so you could really just find what works best for you and your style and your workflow. But again, I do like to use the head as my starting point, and when I say judge the other parts in relation to that, what I mean is I can see in this one, for example, the arm kind of lines up with the bottom of the head, so I'm kind of seeing that as I draw. All right, and with that, it is your turn. Okay, so now that you all are warmed up with gesture drawing and really started to practice it through those speed drawings, now we're ready to kind of show how we can take those gesture drawings and turn it into more of a refined figure drawing. So here I have my quick gesture drawing, and now I'm just kind of refining the face. When I draw faces, I do like to think of it as like a mask and a skull. And so the mask is kind of like the place where you'd put the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And then the skull is kind of what gives the head that rounded shape, right? Because our head kind of goes pretty far back, right? We're not just like a perfect oval for the face and the skull. It's more of like a circle with, again, with the mask, with the oval. So I don't know, that's just something that I don't recall the artist, but I learned that from a previous artist, and it really just stuck with me, and I've just found it to be super helpful, especially when I am drawing faces at an angle like this. Now, also when I'm doing things like drawing arms, I always like to think about it in shapes, right? And you guys should too. But instead of just thinking about them as 2D shapes, we want to try to think about these as 3D shapes. So when drawing arms, I'm thinking about these arms as cylinders, right? And these cylinders each connect to one another at those joints where we have things like our shoulders or our elbows. Right, so those cylinders are connected to one another, and thinking about them as cylinders just helps to give that figure drawing a little more depth, a little more dimension to it than it being a super flat figure. When you're drawing the cylinders and you're getting closer to things like the hands, that cylinder would start to kind of taper, so getting a little more narrow towards the hand. And that's really it. They're just shapes connecting into one another. So I'm doing a quick doodle onto the side there, that funky little drawing. Let me explain what that is. So basically when we draw the legs, right, sometimes it's helpful to kind of think about a kind of almost like an S shape or like a curve with a straight line. So when we're doing something like the thigh that's facing outward, so for example, like her leg that's on the left there, that thigh is facing outward. So when we're drawing that, there would be a curve there. Now I exaggerated it in that quick illustration, but just to kind of show my thought process, again, there's a curve on the outer part and then it's straight on the inside. And then when we get to the lower part of the leg, that's reversed. So on the lower part of the leg, the calf is like a curve, while the front edge is a straight line. So that's just kind of a helpful way to think about it when you're starting to refine that drawing. Now, her other leg is pretty much front facing, so that wouldn't really apply except for the calf, where that lower part of the leg is turned at an angle. But again, for any legs with kind of more of a side view, it is a super helpful tip there. But again, we're just trying to pretty much start to define that gesture drawing a little bit further with those finishing details. And then once you're ready, you can basically push back your entire sketch. So take your eraser or your kneaded eraser or whatever you got and just kind of start to push it into the background. And then from there, we can start to actually draw out this figure. So I'm just using that light sketch that I had created and then going over top of it to create that base outline. So I'm just doing a quick outline here, but of course this is your space to really like take your time and really clean it up and refine it. And then you get to do the fun part, which is adding in all those details, starting to draw out the features on the face, starting to really add in some extra shadows and highlights and value, adding the clothing to the figure, the hair, all the fun parts. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I can't wait to see all the incredible figure drawings that you create.